some mixed martial arts to talk about with World Series of Fighting 24 with John Fitch and Yushin Okami fighting in the main event in, Mashantucket,
Connecticut.
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Well, here's the important part. Just say it's the Foxwoods Resort Casino.
Okay.
That's the thing you need to know. It's at the Foxwoods Resort Casino, and it is the first fight at welterweight for Yushin Thunder Okami. So that weight cut this week is going to be pretty interesting.
And he's fighting, I've heard of this guy, John Fitch. I think I've heard of him.
You know, you could almost call this a number one contenders fight. I know John Fitch thinks of it as such. He said as much when I interviewed him, but it's not officially so. Nobody from the promotion came right out and said that. But with the welterweight title currently being vacant due to Husmar Palhares being stripped of the belt, you have to figure one of these guys, if they aren't the winner, the winner of the title, they're the next in line to fight for the vacant title.
Who would you put in that other bracket?
Jake Shields, the man who got eye gouged to death and back by Palhares and then held on to the submission a little too long when the fight ended. So I would reward Jake Shields for having to go through that shit by putting him in the number one contender match or vacant title match, I should say.
But isn't he currently under suspension as well for the after the bell cheap shot?
Well, it's going to take a while for all this to play out. I mean, first of all, you got to have this fight on Saturday. Then you got to get him back. And then by that time, it's probably ready to go because he'd probably be training the whole time that he's out.
Yeah, absolutely. No suspensions. Suspension doesn't stop you from training.
No, it doesn't. All it does is stop you from competing in a professionally sanctioned bout.
Exactly.
John Jones knows a little something about this issue.
Yes, and we'll talk about him in the news.
Indeed we will.
So John Fitch, Yushin Okami, Okami's first fight in this weight class, who you got?
Well, I look at it like this. The younger man in the fight is Yushin Okami, because he's 34 and Fitch is 37. But Fitch has been making this weight class and making this cut for a long time, dating back to his UFC days and probably even before that. So it's going to be an easier cut for him, even though he's the older of the two fighters. And I'm worried about Yushin Okami being really drawn out, really dehydrated. Hopefully he makes the weight successfully and, doesn't have a kidney stone failure or anything. But at the same time, when you're cutting that much water weight, you're going to also just screw up your internal body to the point you may not be as strong in the fight as you want to be. So personally, I expect that to benefit John Fitch. But it is a calculated risk because if Okami rehydrates successfully, he could be much, much larger than Fitch in the cage. Fitch's answer to that when I interviewed him was, I've got the speed, I've got the tool set, even if he's bigger than me, he still has to catch me. So Fitch doesn't think it's going to be a problem.
If the fight goes to the ground, I got Fitch, but if Okami can keep the fight standing, he's got that power.
He does. But again, I worry that he might lose the power because he is a naturally big boy. He's 6'2", so for him to get down to welterweight, that's going to be a big cut.
Yeah, and you said it before, Fitch has done this cut many times in the past. I'm pretty sure this is, maybe 5-10 pounds off his walking weight?
No, I think he said he walks around closer to 195.
Really? That surprises me, actually.
Yeah, well, actually, you'd be surprised what some of these guys walk around at. I mean, when I talked to Brandon Halsey about his middleweight fight the other day, he said he was, 210, 220, something like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, there are guys cutting, 30, 40 pounds to get down to their weight.
Wonder what, Cormier cuts at.
I think he used to cut 20, 30, but I believe he's actually pretty close to light heavyweight because he failed, I believe, to get into the Olympics because of a weight cutting issue.
He did.
So that was why he was originally fighting at heavyweight, and now that he's the light heavyweight champion, I think he actually stays close to his target weight so he doesn't have to cut much.
So you're telling me a champion stays close to his weight? That's amazing.
Well, for Cormier, he kind of has to because if he gets bigger, he'd get slower, and that wouldn't benefit him because right now his quickness and his wrestling are what keeps him the champ.
What saved him against Gustafsson, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Now let's move on to the co-main event here, and it's for the heavyweight title.
Yes, Blagoy Ivanov making his first defense of the title since taking it from Shmelinyo Rama.
And Derek Memon
Mm-hmm.
is the opponent, and
And
what do you
this
think for
guy,
the challenger here?
he actually has been in a title fight before. He fought Shmelinyo Rama for the inaugural title and was unable to claim it on that night. He lost in 51 seconds in that bout.
Oof.
Yeah, he kind of got smoked. So this is his literal chance for redemption here as he goes against Ivanov. But I don't think it's going to work out any better for him than it did against Rama, because Ivanov was a very successful heavyweight in Bellator, was kind of surprised when they cut him loose and he showed up in World Series, but he has been equally successful here, and he is a very dangerous submission artist. 50% of his wins have come by submission, so I feel like Memon's got one chance, and that's to hit him hard, hit him fast, hit him early, and if he doesn't, Ivanov is just going to smother him and submit him.
So you're saying first round?
I wouldn't necessarily say the first round, but I would say Ivanov gets a finish.
I don't see heavyweight title fights going to decision these days.
Yeah, well, there have been heavyweight fights that have gone the distance in recent memory. You forget about Barnett and Big Country.
Oh, yeah, but that was Japan.
That was not a title fight either, you're right.
No. Yeah. For title fights, I don't, it has happened, but with the history here, I don't see it going to the championship rounds.
No, I think Ivanov will probably finish this quick.
Now, what about Tom Marciano against Nick Newell?
I think this is a one-sided fight, and I think Nick Newell whips his ass.
See, the thing is, Newell wasn't given a spot for the tournament here.
I think he was already booked for this card before they announced the 8-fight lightweight tournament, so I don't think there was any way to turn him around on short notice and get him ready for the tournament when he was already scheduled for this, or vice versa, for him to get medical clearance if he wins out of this to be in that tournament.
Now, do you give him a title shot before the winner of the tournament?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to ask anybody in World Series Fighting that, but I would say the argument against it would be that Marcelino is not a big enough opponent for Newell to beat to earn another title shot, because Marcelino only had one fight in World Series Fighting so far, and he lost it to unanimous decision. And you're going to get a kick out of this one, Peter. The guy he lost to retired after his first win in UFC.
Oh, jeez.
It comes full circle.
Go.
It all comes full circle on this show.
All right. We go to another fight here that is has some name value for sure.
Vinny Magalhães and Matt Hamill.
Which, is Matt Hamill still relevant now?
Well, he was when they announced the light heavyweight tournament. This was actually supposed to be one of the two fights in the bracket.
Then it fell through the cracks, so...
Everything about this fell through the cracks. Go listen to my interview with Magalhães at MMAmania.com. We went into depth about this. Every single permutation of that bracket fell apart. So, ironically now, you could look at this fight as being a top contenders fight. I don't know if it's number one contender, but since this was originally supposed to be part of the tournament, you could look at the winner of this fight and say, he's in the mix to face David Branch. Maybe not number one, but he'd be up there.
Now, do you think Vinny will have trouble making weight? Like, I know you always talk about the IV situation that's being banned now. Do you think Vinny will have a problem making weight?
When I talked to him, he said that his biggest problems in the last couple of years were actually injuries and a staph infection. And I looked at some of the pictures of his staph infection, and don't eat lunch if you're going to do that.
Yeah, no, that's just wrong.
Yeah, so I don't blame him if he's had some problems because of that. So now that he's fully healthy and fully recovered, I don't think any problems making weight for him are going to surface.
See, with Matt Hamill, I think this is his last run. I'm not sure how hard or how fast he hits anymore, but if he thinks he can still go, I mean, all the more power to him.
Well, age is definitely a factor in this one because Magalhães is young. He's 31. That's not too old in this sport. And Hamill is 39. So like you, I feel like he's on the tail end of his run. And he's already come out of retirement twice, which tells you that he's been tempted to come back because of money or his personal situation or whatever, but I don't know that his heart is necessarily in it to that degree when he's had to come back from retirement twice now.
Maybe he can go to Bellator and fight Tito.
No. Honestly, I really think Vinny Magalhaes wins by submission in the first round.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, his track record in World Jiu-Jitsu competition is just way too good for somebody like Hamill, who will just try to straight up wrestle him, and when he gets into trouble, he's not going to know what to do.
And starting off this card is the inaugural flyweight title fight.
Yes, Donovan Freelo, another guy I interviewed on MMA Mania, you can check that out, cheap plug, against Magomed Bibliatov. He is a fighter they have a lot of hope for. They sent out a press release when he was signed, touting their 3 new Russian prospects, and he was one of them. So they believe that this guy from Grozny is the real deal. But Freelo is pretty damn good in his own right. He is a former Team Wanderlei fighter who's now with Syndicate MMA. He's won 4 out of his 5 professional fights by submission. So you got 2 undefeated guys. One is considered a top Russian prospect, and the other is considered a top flyweight that's not currently with anybody other than World Series fighting. It's going to be a very close fight. I like Freelo, but I'm going to say they probably scouted this Russian guy for a reason and made his signing a big deal for a reason. So I predict it goes the full 5 rounds, but unfortunately, just because I like the guy, I can't pick him to win. So I've got Bibliatov by split decision.
And on the prelims, I do notice one familiar name on here as Washington Nunes da Silva fights Colton Smith.
Yes, indeed. And actually, there's a couple interesting fights on the prelims besides that one. You've also got the former featherweight champion Rick Glenn going against Adam Ward.
And Rodrigo Almeida against Bruce Boyington.
Yep, there are some good fights on this prelim card.
So it's on NBC Sportsnet in the States, and I want to say Fight Network in Canada. I'm not too sure on that.